Hey, what's up guys? How are you doing today? Welcome to the channel if you're new. Welcome back if you're returning. We got Goat Edison, Tengu plant format, hat format here. So any of those old formats you like, subscribe for more. Let's get straight into today's profile on Gren Maju for Goat format. Shout out to the Flunderies, the modern Banish deck. We got the old school Banish deck here, so let's do this. Didn't have a Gren Maju mat, so this one made sense, I guess. All right, for the monsters, we got the main man himself. We got 3 copies of Gren Maju de Isa, however you say his name. We got to read him because he's very important to the strategy. He says, this attack and defense of this monster becomes the number of your cards removed from play times 400. Your cards, not your opponent's, just him. So we want to banish as many of our cards as possible. Because if we get like 10 cards, that's already 4K. Ridiculous, right? 20 cards, and that's already 8K. All right, so to get cards banished, we're going to play Bazoo the Soul Eater. Bazoo is another good card, another good banish card. He says you can remove up to 3 monster cards in your graveyard from play to increase the attack of this monster by 300 points for each card removed from play until the end of your opponent's next turn. This effect can only be used once during your turn. So he can go up to 2,500, which is really good as beater, and that'll start getting the ball rolling for Gren Maju. Next up, we have 3 Thunder Dragon. Just like in my Bazoo return deck, I'll say in this deck as well, Thunder Dragon is mandatory for Bazoo because he's going to help deck thin a little to get to your power cards that you need to play, as well as help load up that graveyard for monsters for Bazoo to eat the soul of. So you definitely need that. Next up, we're going to play 3 GK Spy. This is going to help get monsters out of the deck, get that ball rolling defensively, and just kind of deck thin. Just a generically good wall also. So GK Spy, you got to play 3 of him. Next up, we got Magician of Faith. One thing I'll also mention, well, before I do that, Magician of Faith, we have her, 3 of. Great card. Add back a spell. Very self-explanatory. The reason why we're maxed out on 3 Spy and 3 Faith is, 1, they're busted cards, right? They're the best flip effects that you can generically splash into decks. But 2, because Nobleman of Crossout exists in the format, we're not afraid of them getting knocked, because if one of these gets knocked, that means we have 3 cards banished for Gren Maju. So that's really good. Usually it's atypical that in GOAT format you're setting Faith or Spy and saying, I hope I get knocked. But with this deck, it don't matter. It's better. It's okay. Next up, we have BLS. BLS, we have a lot of lights and darks, and he's going to help banish cards from our graveyard for Gren Maju, and he's an insanely good card. So there's a ton of synergy between very good cards in the format and Gren Maju, luckily enough. Works out for us, right? Next up, we have some of the most generic cards in the format. We have Breaker, Songan, and DD Warrior Lady. And that is it for the monsters. Breaker and Songan is really good. Don't need to say anything about them. They're darks for Breaker, or for Blacklist Soldier as well. DD Warrior Lady, insanely good. She banishes herself. That's the point of this whole thing. So that's it for the monsters. We'll get into the spells and traps, but before we do that, if you guys have any changes for this or ratios that you would change, monsters you would change, anything, any comments, questions, let me know down below. Now let's do the spells. Okay, here we go. First up, you have the stuff that's specific to the banished part of the deck. We're playing 2 Dimension Fusion. Dimension Fusion says pay 2,000 life points. Both players special summon as many of their removed play monsters as possible. We are not trying to remove our opponent's monsters from play, just ours. So hopefully we have more that hit the field than them. But yeah, great card. Helps us go for game. Next up, we have Soul Release. Don't get me wrong, we will banish our opponent's graveyard if needed. This deck has a very good matchup against Chaos Turbo because we're able to keep them off of their darks and lights. Post side, we can even put in some stuff that's a little better against them, like Kaiku's, and take out the Dimension Fusion and keep these in. This will help keep them off all their lights and darks while keeping our monsters out of our grave, or our cards out of our grave for Gren Maju, which is really good. Next up, we have the phone, the card keys, and the wallet. You can't leave home without them. These cards are insanely good in the format. Free pluses for your deck. You guys know what they do. Let's move on to the next cards. We have some more one-ofs. We have Snatch Steal, Card Destruction, Lightning Vortex, Heavy Storm, and MST. So Snatch Steal, Heavy Storm, MST, you guys know what those do. Super generic. Super good for this strategy of any deck pretty much in Go format. But specifically for Card Destruction and Lightning Vortex, I will say this. One, they're both limited to one, so you can't play more than that. Two, while their effects are generically really good, being able to out your opponent's board and being able to get some draw power going, the reason why we like them in this deck is because of the discard factor of them. Discarding cards to the graveyard, discarding monsters to the graveyard is really good for what we're trying to do. So this deck is all about getting stuff to the graveyard and then getting it banished from there. So that helps us accomplish that. Next up, we have the traps. For the traps that are specific to the banish strategy, we're playing 3 Return from a Different Dimension. We are maxing the hell out on it. This card is insane. Limited to 1 in Edison format, unlimited in GOAT format, and we found a strategy that can take full advantage of playing 3 copies. It says, pay half of your life points. Special as many of your monsters as possible that have been removed from play on your side of the field. During the end phase, remove from play all monsters that were special summoned by this card effect. So that's why we really want to get those monsters banished with Bazoo, Soul Release, because we can put up a lot of damage in a short amount of time. DD Warrior Lady can come right back. It's really good. We want to max out on seeing this card. It's really good for what we're trying to accomplish. Next up, we're going to have some more generic ones. We're going to have 1 Mirror Force, 1 Torrential Tribute, and 1 Ring of Destruction. Mirror Force is obviously going to be that board wipe to get rid of all your opponent's tag position monsters. Torrential Tribute is going to wipe the field, which helps us get the monsters in the graveyard. Again, what we're trying to do. And then Ring of Destruction, that helps us go for game. Ring of Destruction is insanely good because we can also go for game very easily with Gren Maju. Gren Maju gets very big, so that's very good for us. So not only are these cards usually splashed in most decks, but they have unique interactions with our deck that are advantageous. So that's good. That's why I wanted to point that out. And lastly, for the 39th and 40th card in the deck, we're going to have 2 Solemn Judgment. We are committing a lot, especially with Return for a Different Dimension, Dimension Fusion. Putting a BLS out on board. Slapping a Gren Maju, hoping it sticks to 6k attack and can attack through a Socrates arm or something like that. So we need cards that allow our plays to go through. If I had more space, I would play 3 Solemn Judgment, honestly speaking. But 2 Solemn Judgments we had space for, so we're going to play it. Solemn Judgment is going to let us do what we got to do. Nothing more to say about that. Old Man Says No. Works for us. All right, guys. If you guys like Go, Edison, Tengu, or Hat format, we got it all here. So stick around for more. Subscribe, like the video. Helps this community project of ours. And we'll see you in the next one. Peace out.